Welcome, everybody, and we are happy to have you with us. Hey, Coach, and the Nick Saban Show tonight. Number of different venues part of hosting this program. We had, of course, Dana Duckworth, the gymnastics coach, was with us earlier. Coach Saban is at Baumhauer's Victory Grill in Tuscaloosa. And from beautiful San Diego, California, Aaron Taylor, an analyst for CBS, one of the great players, a Super Bowl champion, a consensus All-America. And Aaron is going to be with us as well. And, of course, Coach Saban is on board. Coach, how are you, sir?
Doing great. I guess more importantly, how you doing, Eli?
I'm hanging in there. We were talking with the boss, and we decided to, be straight up like you were. The reason I'm obviously not really at Bryant-Denny Stadium, that's a superimposed background, but I tested positive for COVID, as did my wife. Regretfully, she got that word today. So we're kind of going over, doing things as best we can, doing the show from my home in this end of things. And I won't be with you on Saturday. I will actually, you and I will be together. We'll talk and do our pregame show and so on. But I will not be with the team in Fayetteville, as much as I hate to end the streak of 409 games in succession behind the microphone. But I thank you for asking. As you know, it's no fun sitting around watching, is it?
No, it really isn't. But I think that this is a great opportunity for, in one of my press conferences this week, I really made people aware of the fact that the Red Cross had contacted me to say how important it is. And I know you've got the plasma treatment, I got the plasma treatment, and I know how much it helped me. And the problem is it would help everyone if we had a supply of the plasma. So more and more people who have had this and have immunities to it need to step up and call the Red Cross and, try to help, some other people heal. I think it cuts down hospitalizations to a large degree and certainly the severity of the illness. So I guess I would plead with everybody again to maybe think about doing that. I guess if you have it like I have, it takes 90 days before I can do it. But as soon as I get the opportunity to do it, I will do it. And hopefully that'll help somebody out there as well. Definitely. Well, and again, I thank you for bringing it up. And I said to people today, and it's the honest to God's truth, I don't say it because I'm supposed to. The University of Alabama has looked after me, as they, I'm sure, looked after the coach. They have just, you can't say enough, Coach, about the doctors, Dr. Robinson, Jeff Allen, everybody, the way they care about the folks who are part of this Alabama family. It's just remarkable. Well, we do have an outstanding medical staff, and I've talked about this before, but I think the players have a lot of trust, a lot of faith, a lot of confidence in the medical staff, and they've done a good job with not only our players, but everybody in our organization. So I'm happy to hear that you feel well taken care of. Definitely. So another thing before we bring our special media guest in, Coach, the university has lost yesterday a very, very special and beloved member of this family, Coach Ray Perkins, who obviously took over from Coach Bryant and was an outstanding NFL coach and great wide receiver, catching passes from Joe Namath and from Kenny Stabler. We hated to hear of Ray Perkins passing. And a gentleman who joins us on this show every week, he calls in as the first caller. He's always that guy, Pee Wee Roberts from Grand Bay, Alabama. Pee Wee's dad passed away, Charles Roberts, and I wanted to mention that as well because, like we say, everybody is part of this Alabama family, and whether it's a big name like a Ray Perkins, whether it's a guy who you just know through a radio show, everybody is part of what this family is all about. So I wanted to mention Ray Perkins and Pee Wee Roberts, his dad, Charles, passing away. Well, our thoughts and prayers are out to Pee Wee's family, no doubt. We hate to hear the news, and saw a little tweet that Pee Wee put out, which was really well-spoken and very honorable of him and his family for his father's passing. And Ray Perkins he's a part of the legacy of Alabama football. A lot of people who aren't as old as me, I remember Ray Perkins when he was a player. All of his coaching successes that he had through the years, as well as being, the coach that took over for Coach Brian here, and then the tremendous amount of support for the 14 years that I've been here. He and Coach Stallings have both been really, really helpful in so many ways. And I know for him and his family, this is something that'll be special to them, but I know that this is a great loss for the university, and our thoughts and prayers go out to his family. We're certainly thinking about all of you at this time.
Definitely. So, Coach, let's welcome in the other gentleman on the screen for those who are watching on Facebook Live. For those of you listening on our radio affiliates, you'll have to trust me. He is the other guy on this trio of get-togethers. Aaron Taylor, a great player, first-round pick in '94, drafted by the Packers, Super Bowl champion. Aaron, great to see you, my friend. And we were talking earlier about you joining us from San Diego. Nice to have you as part of the show tonight.
It's always a pleasure, Eli. Good to be here as well, and I'm glad you're hanging in there and feeling better. I learned long ago, man, if you don't have your health, it doesn't matter how much of anything else you have, it's not enough.
That's exactly right. And, Coach, this is a guy who helped create and run the Joe Moore Award, which goes annually to the most outstanding offensive line. And in the For What It's Worth department, I put in a plug before. I said, hope to see you here soon handing out the award. This man knows his offensive lineman. He really does.
Well, Joe Moore was one of the great offensive line coaches, and I think he was your coach, right, Aaron? Wasn't he your coach for a while? Sure, he was. And I think this is one of the awards that I really cherish the most, because it's one of the few that honor a group of players. Yeah. And the offensive line is a special group of guys. They all seem to have similar personalities. They all have the same kind of competitive characteristics, probably play more together as a unit and as a group in terms of how they communicate, how they combination block, and all those things more than any other group in football. So I think this is a tremendous thing that you continue to do in Joe Moore's honor, because it does mean a lot to our group, who has won it before, and certainly this group who should be considered for it, no doubt, I think.
There's no question about that, Coach, and certainly appreciate those kind words. And you're right, there's a lot of things that are unique about offensive linemen: our lack of athletic ability, our hygiene habits, our eating habits. But to your point, we're the only group in football where 5 have to function as one. If all of us do our job, we're successful. But if one of us doesn't, the whole team pays the price. So it's critical that we function together as a unit, and it's unique in that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. When it's played well, it sets the tone and it elevates the play really of everybody around them, and that's been one of the things that's caught our eye about this 2020 Alabama offensive line.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, but what you say is, I think, goes unnoticed and by a lot of folks, because they watch the ball. So they see the guys that catch it and score touchdowns and run it and play defense and make big hits and interceptions and fumble recoveries. But that group, the offensive line, probably people don't really appreciate or understand the importance of those guys playing well together as a group. Yeah. I don't think people really realize that.
They don't, and until I played the position, I probably wouldn't have either. I'm a parent, you're a parent, there's a lot of parents out there. Sometimes it's a thankless job. It's the hardest thing you have to do, but you play an important role, and that's kind of how I think we look at our position. I've never been on a good offensive line that didn't set the tone, and that's really one of the things that sets this 2020 Alabama offensive line apart, is watching your center absolutely destroy people and send messages that if you try to come inside on my guard or my tackle, there's going to be hell to play inside. So, but more than that, there's a humility that I think goes along with the position. We're extremely hard workers. It's a thankless position. And the bottom line is that the O-line, if we can't make it in the sport of football in the O-line position, there's nowhere else for us to go. So we always have that little bit of fight and scrap to us, because we know that that's the last stop on the train.
I love the way he said. I was on a show, Coach, yesterday actually, doing an interview with a station in Mobile, and they were doing taking a poll of their listeners. Said, of all the players on the Alabama roster, who would you want to be able to go out to lunch with and sit down and just shoot the breeze? And Landon Dickerson, of the portion of the show that I heard, everybody was picking him. I mean, he has really caught everybody's attention, hasn't he?
Well, he's got a great personality. He's got a great sense of humor, and he is a fantastic leader. And
Yeah.
I think people are really sort of drawn to him. And the way he plays the game, the way he makes calls, the way he enjoys playing, he's really, really tough, can play through just about anything that happens to him. You ask him, are you okay? He's always okay. And I just have a tremendous amount of respect. But I do think that his leadership and his presence has really had an impact on bringing this group together. And I think it's helped them all develop confidence in playing, to play better as a group and as a unit.
Here now the snap. Handoff. Naji goes right, goes left, goes right, goes left, goes into the end zone. Touchdown, Alabama.
Naji Harris now from 20 touchdowns on the ground. He's just doing an outstanding job. Last week, 21 carries, 144 yards, and 3 touchdowns. As we welcome you back, Eli Gold, Coach Nick Saban, and the special media guest is Aaron Taylor. And you talk about the offensive line blocking. They did there, but even then, Naji just did so much that came naturally, the way he cut in and out like that.
Well,
it's been incredible to watch him develop throughout this year. He's really elevated his game in the short area quicks, his ability to be able to run with power, his vision, his patience, the way he sets blocks up both inside the box and in the perimeter. He's really become a well-rounded player, and just one of the many reasons why this offense is on a historic pace that it is.
Yeah.
I love backs that are patient. I love backs that made us. We're not the most athletic guys, so if you can set a guy up by bringing him to us, that makes our job all the easier. But you watch the power that he's also able to run with, especially when you have your quarterback giving efforts to try to get you across the goal line. It just makes everything good. Everything in the sport of football stems and starts with the run game. And if you can run that football, and the Crimson Tide certainly can with Naji Harris, it sets up the season that we're seeing from their special running back and quarterback and wide receiver.
I think that's the biggest thing that's has helped Naji really grow and improve as a player, is what Aaron alluded to in terms of setting up his blocks, pressing the hole so that he brings the defense to the blockers, and then making the proper cut off of those guys. I mean, that touchdown where he jump cut outside, he's reading the linebacker and pressed the hole, so he brought everybody to the offensive line, then he jump cut outside. I mean, this is really, really vintage how you run inside zone plays, and he's done a really, really good job. And when he first came to Alabama, he wanted to bounce everything outside. All right, so he would jump outside, and playing offensive line, now everybody's running away from you. So and you got to try to go catch him. So he's really, really become a really, really good player. And I think people underestimate him as a complete player. He's a really good blocker when he has to pick up somebody on the blitz, and he's a really good receiver as a third down back. So he's a really good all-around player. So I really think he's enhanced his value in his stock by the way he's played this year.
The Nick Saban Show, presented by Alpha Insurance. For auto, home, and life insurance, call Alpha. As we mentioned earlier, I didn't really expect this gentleman would be calling us, but I should have known better. He never misses a show. Tonight's first phone call brought to you by Alabama 811. Always contact 811 before you dig to know what's below. Call 811 or visit al811.com. Pee-wee, who, as we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, lost his dad the other day. And we wish you the very best. Excuse me. We wish you the very best, Pee-wee, and you and your family, and just know we're all thinking of you at this very, very tough time.
I appreciate that, Eli.
Yeah, Pee Wee. Our thoughts and prayers are with you and your family, and I know how difficult it is to lose one of your parents. It was the most traumatic thing I ever had to go through when I was a young man, only like 21 years old. So we always have to have gratitude and count our blessings for the time that we had with our parents and the lessons that we learned. So God bless you and your family.
Amen.
I appreciate that, Coach. Kind of been in a fog since yesterday morning, and calling in tonight, just kind of taking my mind off of what's going on and a little sense of normalcy. So.
But we're thrilled that you did take time to join us here this evening. I know that's not necessarily the highest priority for a lot of folks, but we're all kind of family together. So we do thank you for taking the time to
But I
join
do
in.
think Aaron needs to know that regardless of this hardship, that Pee Wee is really the offensive line coach. Every time he calls in every week, it's about the offensive line. So there is one guy that is always got a question about the offensive line. Never ask about anything else but the offensive line. So he's an old-fashioned tough guy at heart.
He is.
Well, they're the bread and butter. It doesn't matter how good of a quarterback you have, how good your running backs are, anything else. If your offensive line cannot do their job, you're not going to have time to throw the ball. You're not going to have no time to run the ball. So when they work, the whole offense works, and they the big dogs.
There you go. We got to get the name Pee Wee in the Joe Moore Award somehow. That'd be a nice little. Hey, that's your assignment for the night, Aaron.
Love it. I'll find out a way to weave that in creatively, no doubt.
Hear you. Pee Wee, thank you so much, my friend. God bless you. We're all thinking of you and your family, and we'll talk to you again real soon. Coach, we have a question from the Nick Saban Show blog on AL.com from Doug in Demopolis, Alabama. Says, Coach, in your opinion, where has Arkansas made the biggest on-field improvements this fall compared to where they were last year and the year before that? Thank you, and roll tide.
Well, I think their entire team has played a lot better. I mean, you're really talking about a team that they lost 3 games by a total of 7 points.
Yep.
And they are 3-6, so they could be 6-3 very easily. They score a lot of points. They run the Baylor-style offense, which is very similar to Ole Miss, which creates, a lot of problems for defensive players and run-pass conflicts and a lot of different things. Their defense is actually playing a lot better. So this entire team, their coach is an old offensive line coach, since we've spent so much talking about the offensive line, and he was one of the best offensive line coaches in the country, and he's a tough guy, and their whole team sort of reflects his personality in terms of how they compete and how they play. So I have a tremendous amount of respect for this team. I've been trying to talk to our team all week about how important, because it goes back to the old rat poison thing I talked about a couple years ago. If you listen to the media and read the newspaper, it's a foregone conclusion that we're just going to go there and win this game. And you hear that so much, and it starts to affect your focus and your intensity and the way you prepare and the way you think you need to go play to be able to have success in the game. And, I just, been on our players all week long about, you got a chance to create a legacy as a team. Win 10 SEC games, go undefeated in the SEC, or you could create the biggest loss in college football this year, the biggest upset in college football. And it's really all up to you, all up to how you think, all about how you want to approach the game, all about, your motivation and intensity to go be the best player that you can be and improve and build on the momentum that we'll need down the road when we have other opportunities. And, you never get a chance to retrieve a loss. When it's over, it's over. And they'll always say, no matter what you do after that, they'll always say, yes, but. Yes, but. They had a good team, but they lost to Arkansas. Yes, but. That's all you're ever going to hear about the team after this. I don't care what we do after this. So, You know, it's important to have the proper respect for your opponent and know what it takes to go win on the road in this league. I mean, this team just scored 47 points against Missouri. So, and I don't know why we sort of, you know, don't sort of respect what they're capable of doing. So it's an important game for us, in my opinion, and we got to have the right mindset to do it. And, you know, when you don't have the right focus and you don't have the right mindset, you know, our habits are so important to helping us be successful. And let's be honest, most of us have bad habits. Okay, we have to change our habits to make them into good habits, whether it's how we eat, whether it's how we recover, whether it's how we practice, a lot of things that we do. So if you're not focused on continuing to have the right habits, and I don't care what your dreams are, I don't care what your vision is, I don't care what your aspirations of what you want to accomplish are, they're not going to get you there. What will get you there is the habits that you have, the things that you do every day, how you condition yourself to do things the right way. So when you don't have the right focus and you don't have the right mindset, you're not doing that. You're not doing it in practice, you're not doing it on the field, you're not paying attention to detail, and then all of a sudden those things start showing up on the field and they cost you. So that's my speech for tonight.
Let me follow up on that with a quick question. Here's Arkansas with 13 interceptions this year, 4 fumble recoveries, but 13 interceptions. Is it a particularly complex defense that they run that makes it tough for the other team to decipher what's going on? Why that kind of a gaudy number by the secondary?
Well, they play a lot of zone, and they play a lot of 8-drop zone.
Okay.
All right, so you have to be really, really patient when a team is willing to drop 8 guys on defense over and over, and you can't force the ball down the field. You have to take what the defense gives. So sometimes you have to be willing to throw a check down and have to catch it and run it to make yards, rather than thinking that you're going to throw big plays when they're playing 3-5-3 zone with double cloud, and it's hard to make plays down the field. So I think that is a big contributing factor to why I think they're leading the league in turnover ratio and turnovers gained, you know, this season.
Exactly. They're second in the conference, and they're 15th in America.
Right. So, and I think that's a big part of the reason why. Of course, they mix it up, and they'll pressure you and blitz you, and they play, you know, inside out because they play 4 eyes on defense, force the ball outside, and then they got all these apex players outside that are more difficult to block.
Aaron, why don't you throw a question in the coach's direction? Jump right in.
Hey, Coach, I'm interested about what you were talking about with mindset. That's always been something that you've led with and talked prominently about, and clearly has played an integral role in your development of players in your program. I know with Dr. Kevin Elko, the sports psychologist, he's had a role in the team. I'm just curious, where were you introduced to the importance of mindset, and how has that been a critical role to the success that you and your teams have had?
You know, when I went to graduate school, I took a concentration in sports psychology and took some psychiatry and psychology classes, both. And it really made me start to be very interested in things like how anxiety, how achievement motivation, all these different things, you know, sort of factor into your ability to perform. So that probably started it. But then, you know, I had the opportunity, and he hates it when I mention his name, but Dr. Rosen is a psychiatrist at Michigan State who was involved with the team when I was at Michigan State, and he's become one of my best friends. He's been with us for 25 years now, ever since I was started at Michigan State. You know, as someone who has always sort of been able to explain the importance of human behavior and how it affects your opportunity to be successful in whatever you choose to do. So it's been educational, it's been very interesting, and I think it's been very helpful to some players. You know, as coaches, I think most coaches can coach a certain personality type of guy who wants to be a good player, who's going to do things right, who will run through the wall for the coach. But if you want to be successful in this day and age, because of so many backgrounds that players come from, that you have to be able to get some guys that maybe aren't the perfect psychological disposition, but they have a lot of ability. And if you can get them to find a way to be able to be successful, to overcome, maybe some of the little psychological blips that they have, and can focus on things in a different way and in a different light, I think you have a much, much better chance to be successful. And I think that's one of the things that we've been able to do, is get some guys who have struggled to perform in certain circumstances to perform very, very well. And I can tell you story after story, and Dr. Rosen has been very helpful in educating us on how to do that. And he also knows every one of our players. So he gets to know every one of our players, so he actually helps us to know how to coach a player, because you can't coach everybody the same. You got to be fair and honest with every player, but you can't coach them all the same. And I think that has been very helpful, because every player is going to respond a little bit differently to the critical eye, I call it. Everybody should welcome the critical eye, because somebody's being critical to help you be better. All right, but most people don't look at it that way. All right, so this has been something that I think has helped us, because we've been able to get more different type personalities to be able to function effectively and be successful, not only on the football field, but I think it's helped them in their life as well.
No question. And Aaron Taylor, you've obviously been around many a coach. It's answers like this that I believe separate Nick Saban from the others, but from the run-of-the-mill coach, man. He leans on folks, he learns from people, and that to me is what separates him from the others.
Well, I can tell you stories, Aaron. I'll tell you one story. When I was at LSU, we had this guy named Kendrick Allen, and he was one of my favorite players on the team. And he was about 6'6". He weighed about 320 pounds. He could run 4.6. And we could not even get him to practice, not go through the off-season program, nothing, just shut down. So I would call him in my office, and I would say, Kendrick, God gave you such great tools. You're so blessed. Why won't you try to take advantage of it? So, I tell Dr. Rosen about this, and he tells me, what an idiot I am for the approach that I'm using with this guy. He said, he doesn't want to disappoint you. And the only reason that he won't go out there and play and do anything is he doesn't want to disappoint you, because he thinks you have such high expectations for him. And when you sit around and tell him he should be a number 1 draft pick, that just makes it worse. He said, just tell him to go throw a fit, and you have no expectations for him. You don't expect him to get any tackles. You don't expect him to get any sacks. Just go out and play hard and throw a fit.
Isn't that something?
Guy made all SEC. He played about 5 or 6 years in the league. He was one of the best players we had. So I get credit for this, but I don't deserve the credit for it, because I was doing it exactly backwards.
Yeah, but you learn from that. You learn from that, and that's how you go on.
From the 25, here's Mack, straight drop on the far hash mark, looks long, wide open, near side, touchdown, Billingsley. And all of the LSU players are looking at each other, said, I thought you had him. No, I thought you had him. No, he had him. Nobody had him. Touchdown, Alabama.
Khalil Billingsley, last week, 4 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown. He has a couple of TDs. What happens on a play like that, Coach? It obviously worked wonderfully for Alabama. How did the play catch LSU off guard or whatever? Because it did look like, hey, you had it. No, you should have had him. No, you should have had him. What was the key to that play working?
Well, I think that it was play action, and I think that what Aaron talks about, when you have balance in your offense and you can run the ball, you're obviously going to get the defense to draw when you run a good play action pass. And we had Jalil tucked over here in a YY wing because he is a tight end, although he can run and catch like a wide receiver. And we ran I think Smitty or Mechie on an over route, and he came underneath and across the field, on a beeline route, and they have to pass that off in the deep part of the field, and you get the receivers at different levels. It's very difficult for them to do that. So, we struggle with that pass ourselves sometimes when people run it against us. The players really have to be geared in. It has a lot to do with receiver location and splits, and if you don't get it pre-snap, you'll never react to it, after the down starts.
I hear you. Aaron, go ahead and jump in with the coach.
Coach, we've talked about Naji, we've talked about the offensive line, even a little bit about Devonta Smith, but I'm curious about your quarterback. One of the things that you've done an excellent job, besides running a clean program, is that guys stick around. They're patient. They don't hit the transfer portal when they don't get their opportunity right out of the gate. We're watching Mac Jones shine, elevate his play to certainly getting an invitation to New York for the Heisman ceremony. Virtually, I know it's going to be this year. But at what point in his career when he was on campus did you know that he had that it factor that has allowed him to play like he has this season?
Well, we always thought Mac was a talented enough guy to be a really, really good player, and he's a very intelligent person, very smart, great understanding. But I think the biggest thing that we wanted to see Mac grow and mature in was his ability to manage his emotions down in and down out and not get affected by the last play. And I think that was the thing that once he matured through that, through confidence, that he could go play the next play. No matter what happened on the last play, if he made the wrong read, threw it to the wrong guy, made a bad throw, took a sack that he shouldn't have took, didn't redirect the protection properly, whatever it was. He's such a bright guy that he beat himself up so bad when he didn't do things perfectly. So I think that was the key to getting him to take the next step as a player. And sometimes you just have to have experience doing that. And you find out, hey, I threw an interception, they ran it back for a touchdown. It wasn't the end of the world. I still had to play the next play, and we still had a chance to win. So, and he's just done an outstanding job for us this year. And I can't really say that I can honestly tell you when I felt like he could be a good player, but I think when he played last year, and even though he made some mistakes and had some growing pains, he also did a lot of really, really good things. And I think that experience really helped him. I think it helped him over the offseason sort of mature and develop even more and know what it took to actually go out there and play with consistency in terms of preparation as well as, controlling your mindset during the game so that you could continue to play with consistency. So, and he's done an outstanding job of that. And the big thing that I keep talking to Mac about is, don't have these expectations of grandeur, because when you start thinking about outcomes and doing things at a certain level and then they don't happen, you get frustrated. So you have to stay process-oriented, focus on what you have to do to get the outcome that you want, and you'll be fine. So, and he's been able to do that extremely well all year long. But it's all going to be how we finish. You put yourself in this position. You've been on some really good teams in your career, but you put yourself in this position, and everything about the legacy of how the team gets remembered is all about how you finish. So how we're able to finish this game, the next game, whatever that is, that's going to define the legacy of this team. That'll be how this team gets remembered, and it'll be for every player as well. So being able to maintain that consistency in performance, maintain that focus, even when at this time of the year most football players don't feel great. So you have to choose it. You have to choose to do things a certain way so that you can continue to play well. And that's the challenge for all of us as coaches and players, to be able to get people to continue to do that.
Coach, we all know about the Next Kids Foundation and all the stuff that you do for the community, building homes, this, that, and the other. And Aaron, you have something called the Impact Fund, which basically is those who have helping people who don't have. How did that first start? Where were you when it finally came to in your 6-year career in the NFL and you said, I got to start doing this? Tell me about that.
Well, that's a great question and a really good story. I was actually on Fifth Avenue in New York City, down in the Village, and I was walking, and I was torn between going into TV and continuing that part of my career, or using the secondary degree in elementary education I got after retiring from the NFL. And it was kind of like more 15 minutes of fame that I didn't want for money at the time I didn't need. I got married since then and had kids, so the money just evaporates when that happens. But it was one of those things where it's like, hey, you can use one to do the other. It doesn't have to be an either or. And that was the genesis of the Aaron Taylor Impact Fund, bridging the gap between those that have and those that need. So it's looked a million different ways for me, going to Sri Lanka and doing some relief work after the tsunami. It's mentoring kids. It's shown up in a variety of ways over the years. But the bottom line is I had a lot of making up to do for my 20s and 30s when I thought I had everything figured out.
Yeah, he said it well. And Coach, you understand exactly what he's saying, aren't you, able to do that?
Well, I'm so pleased to hear that you have used your position and the things that you've been able to accomplish and still have enough compassion to start a foundation that actually helps, other folks. And I think I get as much positive self-gratification, and I know Miss Terry does as well, from the things that we do for other people in terms of trying to help young kids have a better opportunity to have a chance to be successful in their life. And I actually think that, a lot of the things that are issues in our society right now, we need to get to the nuts and bolts of it and try to get these opportunities for a lot of these kids in some of these neighborhoods when they're young, so that they can get an education, so that we can create opportunities for them to get an education and change their environment. We had 10 players today that graduated that will actually walk on Saturday. And I'm really proud of all those guys. But what people don't realize is they just changed their legacy for their family probably forever. Because every one of their kids and everyone in their family, they're going to influence now to get an education. And that's going to make a huge difference in the opportunities that they create for themselves and the chances that they have to be successful in their life.
Naji waits. Mack claps his hands, gets the snap. Mack stands in, throws back of the end zone. High. Devonta. Oh my goodness. Touchdown, Alabama. Devonta goes up, makes an unbelievable touchdown catch. I mean, even LSU fans are applauding him right now. What a grab.
Unbelievable. Coach, do you sometimes just stand there on the sidelines and you watch a catch like that and you just say, my gosh, how the heck did he do that? Do you ever sometimes just stop and take stock of what you're looking at?
I see these guys make these incredible plays so much that I don't think it really surprises me much when they make them. But I can tell you that I really do appreciate the fact that we have those kind of players that are capable of that. And a guy like Smitty, people just don't get the fact that this guy is a fantastic person. He's got great character. He's a hard worker. He does everything that you ever ask him to do. He's never been in my office one time in 4 years for anything but something good. And sets a great example, impacts the other players on the team, cares about the other players on the team. And I'm telling you, there's nothing better for your team when the best players on your team are great people. And this guy is all of the above, I promise you. And he's having a fantastic year, and it couldn't happen to a better guy.
Exactly right. A wonderful young man. And listen, we'll be able to show more of the highlights, of course. If you've missed this show in any portion, you can always catch it on demand on our Alabama Insider podcast. You can download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And Coach, though, we are about out of time for this hour, but it is time for your final word, presented each week by Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing.
Well, I think I already said pretty much what I had to say, what I said earlier about, players having the right mindset and the right focus and going out and playing the way they're capable of playing and not being affected by external factors I call rat poison, what they read in the media, what they read in the newspaper. that can affect their energy and their intensity and their ability to focus on what they have to do to have success. You got to focus on what's happening now. And what's happening now is we're playing Arkansas, and we have to do a great job to have success in this game, because I think any team in the SEC can beat any team. And I think that it's all about you. It's all about what you decide, how you decide to play, what you decide to do, who you are. I tell guys all the time, when I was at Miami Dolphins, they made a cut-up of you. And I watched the cut-up. I didn't know who you were playing against. I didn't know what the score was. I didn't know any of that stuff. I just was watching you. I didn't know if you were a starter or you were a backup. I was just watching you. So why would you ever let anything deter you from playing the best that you can play, regardless of what the score is, regardless of what the point spread is, regardless of where you're playing, regardless of who you're playing against? So I'm hopeful that our players can make this about who they are and the choices that they make in terms of what they want to accomplish and what they want to do to make this team special in terms of the legacy that they create for themselves.
Indeed. So, Coach, as always, sir, thank you so much for your time. It's always a pleasure. And I know you enjoyed having Aaron on as much as I did. A great storyteller, and great to have him on the program with us.
Now, Aaron, I certainly do appreciate you doing this. I've always had a lot of respect for you and what you're doing, and what kind of player you were in the NFL as well as in college, and hope you and your family do well and have a great holiday.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach. Always a pleasure to be with you, and I assure you the respect is mutual, so feel better and finish this thing, huh?
All right, we'll do the best we can. I appreciate you, man. Thanks.
Take care, gentlemen. Coach Saban, Aaron Taylor, we thank you for joining us.